What's this documentary for? You're going to do a making of?
Making of.
And then you got to do a making of the documentary. Isn't there another guy with a camera?
There's somebody following him.
Good. You got to have a bunch.
Sticks to the news!
We're coming up on the foundation upon which my entire life was built.
I've told Kevin Smith many times, you're one of the reasons I'm a director.
There's an element of luck involved, but it's also being the voice of your generation, which he was.
I saw a movie and it made me change everything.
He's like, hey, I'm writing a script and I'm putting you in it. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And we were going to make like a video with some friends.
I knew he was one of these guys that was into plays, somebody I would never have anything in common with.
He was in every play in high school.
There was nobody in film school that could write like him.
25 years later, people are still talking about Clerks.
I was aware of Kevin Smith beyond his movies, but as an idea. And he was eloquent, and he was funny, and he'd go on stage and talk for an hour.
Kevin has created his own world, his own humor, his own fan base.
Fans coming from Australia, Brazil, he connected with them.
Kevin was the first person I knew that set up an internet visibility to reach his fan base.
Kevin was on there. He talked to everybody. Now, you do that anywhere, but back then it was just unheard of.
We also had common interests in comics, Star Wars, and hockey.
We're now fully in the world that he was always evangelizing.
I'm such a fan of his that
I would have done it if it was a Human Walrus movie.
I love Kevin Smith.
Hello, awesome dude.
He is a god among nerds.
Who doesn't know who Kevin Smith is?
He became a cultural touchstone beyond the movies that he made.
He carved his own path in a way that I don't think was possible when he started.
He will never give up. He will find a way to keep going and going and going.
It was by default that I wound up working at the store that would literally change my life.
People refer to it as a cameo. I would rather think of it as my first starring role.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're so excited to have with us here the director of a really awesome documentary that we saw at South by Southwest 2021 called Clerk, Malcolm Ingram. Malcolm, say hello to everybody out there.
I'm stoned, so I'll never match that energy.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
That's the thing. You came out so strong and energetic. I'm like, I smoked a joint an hour ago. I don't know if I can match that.
Well, I mean, I don't expect you to match my energy. That's all right. But let's talk about a couple different things. Your documentary is coming out on Blu-ray from Mercantile Instinct. I have a copy of it here. I saw it at South by Southwest 2021. I love this doc.
Oh, thanks, man.
I think it's
awkward if you were just like, and I just want to tell you that it sucks balls. And I want to say it to your face. And then you're like, click, and I'm just left here being like, that was awful.
Nah, man, I thought it was a really, really nice and really private piece that kind of explored Kevin Smith as a person, because everybody sees this bombast. I said it in my review of the film. Everyone sees this sort of big personality in a hockey sweater, but they don't see the guy who used to be, what he used to be when he was just a kid growing up. And your film explores what it is that makes him tick as a filmmaker and as a person. And I really loved how intimate that it was. Can you talk about making it?
Sure. Like, I pitched Kevin. First, I was supposed to write a book. It was the 25th anniversary of Clerks was coming up. And Kevin asked me if I'd write a book. And I was like, sure. And then I'm also lazy, so I was like, what about make a documentary? So he was like, sure. It was that simple. Like, it was first, like, I actually drunkenly proposed it through text. I was sitting on a patio in Sarasota, Florida. He had just left. He was there, and I had taken over his room. And he was put up in a fancy room, so I was getting drunk on the patio. And I was like, well, if I'm making a if I'm going to write this book, I'm going to have to tape all these interviews, and if I'm taping them, I might as well film them, and if I'm filming them, might as well do a documentary. And like, that was the math. Booze helped me. Thank you, Booze. So basically I was sitting there, and like, I texted him because I was alone drinking on the patio, and I was like, hey man, like, if we're doing these interviews, like if I'm doing all these interviews, I should film, make a documentary. And he's like, sure, that sounds a good idea. And then like the idea of doing a documentary became more interesting, and the idea of writing a book became less interesting.
I love that. And on this Blu-ray release, you actually have audio commentary with you and Kevin.
Yeah.
Both. That's some wild shit, man.
Wait, and the funniest thing is we don't talk about the movie at all.
Yeah, no.
The thing with the commentary is that, like, literally we did it during the pandemic, and I went to New Jersey, and we hadn't seen each other in a while, and literally, like, we found a space to do it outside, we were just we were just in catch-up mode. So basically, we had the time of how long the documentary was, and essentially that the commentary is two old friends catching up.
I loved it. I loved hearing that, because like I said, I'd already seen the movie, so when I rewatched it yesterday, I just watched it with the commentary on. It's just two dudes shooting the shit for.
I mean, that's
2
what
hours.
it is, and it's fun. I mean, like, I don't know, we have a good rapport. I've known him for a long time, and we have a lot of similarities and that kind of thing. So I'm just like, we're very comfortable with each other. So, you know what I mean? Our conversation just kind of is, maybe more intimate than maybe others would be.
I mean, that's pretty clear when you're listening to this, that everything was sort of, just two guys who have known each other a long time, just having conversations, and that always tends to work itself out better from where I'm sitting as an audience member. You know what I mean?
I think so. I mean, I think that's what because you're hearing that's. Oh, are you being shot at? Are you okay?
No, my leg hurts.
Oh my God! Ambulance! Ambulance! Are you okay?
Yeah, you were saying?
Ambulance. No, I mean, it was like, it was a great opportunity to kind of sit down and do the chit. Because I was of the mind, like, up until we sat down, I'm like, okay, so I had a copy of the movie, like, on my iPad. I was like, and he was just like, no, we're not going to do that. And I was like, okay. And so it basically was it was more like a podcast. And I like that. And I think that is more original. And then for fun, I had the editor do one with his brother, and it's like his brother is the OG fan of Kevin's that played on the hockey team that Kevin had in Brantford, Ontario, where I met my editor. So like the Stanley brothers are a big part of like the lore of me as a filmmaker. Like Sean Stanley became my editor at the piece, so they did a commentary as well.
I actually really like their commentary. I listened to a little bit of it. I didn't get all the way through, but I can't wait to hear the rest of it. Let me ask you something. You're also distributing this through Mercantile Instinct, which is your company.
That's true. It's a fact.
What are the plans for this company? What was the idea behind it?
Basically, we had kind of like we've been dealing with getting this thing out there, and like dealing with different territories, different rights, and that kind of thing. And physical rights is something I wanted to maintain because Kevin is pretty legendary for putting out really impressive physical media. Like all of his releases have great supplements. So I wanted to make sure that if we were going to I want to do a physical release because his audience is used to that format. And secondly, I wanted to make sure that it could be the best it could be. And we were dealing with one company and it didn't work out. So I was just like I'm just gonna put it out. Like it's just like let's just put it out ourselves. Like let's just kind of like. And I have a backlog of movies that I made that I never released just because distribution's been such a mess for so long now. You know, and it just kind of like there's such a glut in the marketplace, and these smaller companies like they just can't. It's getting people's attention is really hard, and like if you don't have money or or time or manpower, all that kind of stuff, you're not gonna be seen. And it's like, who better than myself to kind of fight for my own films? So I found a certain nobility in that, and a certain kind of like, well, yeah, like I can control the fate of my movie, and I'm in a privileged position where I can do that. So we're just going for it. My producer kind of agreed, and off we went. We kind of we went to what's that site where you look for website names, and you kind of and we got the website name, we put it up, we're just like boom, we're in business. So yeah, that's how it worked.
Any plans for some future releases, and what are they?
Yeah, I'm going to release my movie Phantom Winnipeg, which is a documentary that we shot in Winnipeg and Los Angeles about how this movie Phantom of Paradise, which is a huge movie that Brian De Palma did in 1974, that when it came out, it was a big bomb all over the world except Winnipeg, where it grossed more than like Jaws and The Exorcist, and played there forever. And it's just this anomaly of like this, it's kind of a Sugar Man type thing where it's just like nobody heard about this movie, but in this town, it was the biggest thing going. So I did a documentary about that, and we're going to release that. And then I did a documentary Continental about the Continental Baz. So yeah, there's a bunch of back catalog stuff that kind of like, they weren't urgent stories that needed to be told. They were just kind of historical stories that, like, I knew it was just like there'll be a time and a place for these movies, and that time is now.
I love that. Also, I think Phantom of the Paradise is actually playing at the New Bev right now in Los Angeles. Can't confirm.
It is. It's a tribute to Ed Pressman, who is in our film, and his son Sam was very helpful with us in making a Phantom. Like that, Phantom of Paradise, like now is getting a real renaissance because gentlemen like Edgar Wright and Guillermo del Toro are calling it their favorite film. So Phantom of the like, and that wasn't like when I first came up with this idea like in 2008. Like it's been a long time. I read an article about it that somebody posted. This like little article online. I was like, is this real? And then I found out about it. I was like, this is really freaky. But in the meantime, Phantom of the Paradise has turned into this real huge cult movie. And it's having its 50th anniversary next year. So we have some fun stuff. So Mercantile will be going to Winnipeg, and they're doing some festivities. So next year is going to be a big year for Mercantile, but we're thrilled that Clerk is the one that's kind of starting us.
I think it's a great start. I would love to see what you guys do with the home release of Phantom. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and and the thing about it is we do VHSs, right? And it's like everything released is going to have a VHS release as well. I didn't even know they still made VHS, but when I found out they did, I was like, oh, we got to do some of those. And it was really everybody who sees. Like I remember like showing to Kevin like the VHS of the movie is like he was just like, it's magical, right? Because that's how I first saw movies. Like that is such a recognizable format. It just gives you this Pavlovian kind of like, oh, VHS.
That's ironic. So that's how I first saw Clerks, was on a VHS.
I mean, it's. It was the standard. The funny thing now is that making VHS is a lot more expensive than, like, it's really expensive to make, but it's just worth it. Like I'm thinking, I'm only we did a larger run of this, but I want to do a limited run of 100 of everything we ever release, just because I think everybody should have a VHS of their own movie.
Love that. I love that. Now, I want to ask you two questions. They're pretty fun, and I always ask every guest that I have every single time. First one, pretty simple. Who are some people that inspire you?
I would say like John Waters was a huge inspiration. Russ Myers, like those independent-minded guys. But like Mick Jagger and Elvis Presley, I've like showmanship. I've always been inspired. I like, Elvis is a big thing for me, but I don't know Elvis. I don't know if it's an inspiration or more just I'm just fascinated with the man. Like, I think he was such an important part of culture. But like I would say, like for inspiration, like Joe Strummer from the Clash has been kind of like on a moral level. I think that he really taught me a lot about ethics, and I think that like Joe Strummer is probably one of the people most responsible for me having like the ethics that I do, kind of a punk rock ethic, is really from Joe Strummer. But yeah, definitely like John Waters. Although meeting him, like that was a true never meet your heroes moment with me. Like everybody has these great meeting John Waters stories. Mine was horrible, and I ended up meeting him like we were on the same festival circuit and stuff, and like it was awful. And every time I saw him was awful. And but I can't deny like, and it's so wonderful to see him get all the appreciation he's getting now because he deserves it.
He's a true savant. Like he just does whatever he wants, and I appreciate and respect that.
Well, I mean, the thing, him and Kevin have a lot. Like John Waters is a huge Kevin. John Waters loves Kevin. I actually got to see them do a talk together in Provincetown. But like they're both very independent. Like like both those guys like put their money where their mouth is, paid for their first films. Worked a certain like kind of like filled a void that didn't exist. Like, Kevin, like Clerks, like there was no movies like Clerks before Clerks. Kevin kind of Kevin was nostalgic about the 90s in the 90s. Like, and it shows, and he ended up being this kind of like Forrest Gump. He was just a part of all of these different things that he kind of, he working with Marvel and Joe Quesada and working with, all like, getting into podcasts. And Kevin's kind of been at the forefront of a lot of interesting places in pop culture. And I think it's always been fascinating to watch where he goes.
I love that answer. That's actually one of my favorite answers because you managed to, tie it back to what we're talking about here, which rarely happens. Before I ask you your second question, I do love that Kevin does a podcast. We also do one as well. We usually talk about whatever the hell we want on it.
Okay.
It's a fun time. I recommend it, guys. If you guys aren't, this is our audience, so I can say if you guys haven't listened to this month's episode, we talk about David Lynch. Now, the last question I'm going to ask you, it's a hard question. You can only watch 2 movies for the rest of your life. What are they and why?
My mind right away went to, it was very easy. Probably The Last Waltz, just for the music. And then I'd have to say probably Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, just because that movie never gets old. Like I started watching that movie like in my teens, and I could like that movie. Like I know every part of it back and forth, but it literally that movie brings such a wonderful smile. Like it's so batshit like everything about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is just batshit crazy. The fact that it got made, the screenplay that Rod Dreber wrote, the acting, just kind of like the ending, like it's like that's definitely. I can't. Why didn't you give me 5? Why only 2? Why didn't I get 5?
Because it makes it harder. It makes it so much harder, and that's why I like it. I do like the Last Waltz pick. You're not the only person to pick a band documentary, but I love when that gets chosen because I'm a huge rock doc guy. Any rock docs that exist.
But it's choosing the rock docs. I could have went with Gimme Shelter, but the thing like you have such a different selection of musicians in the Last Waltz. You got like Neil Diamond, you got like Neil Young, you got
Muddy Waters.
Dylan. Yeah, so it's such a spectrum of musicians. Or I would have like Gimme Shelter, which is me trying to sneak another one in there, but definitely a music doc. Like I love watching music docs, like big time. Another movie. Another movie that is insane watchability for me, and I've had a really weird relationship with, is Wolf of Wall Street. I saw Wolf of Wall Street the first time, and I hated that movie. Like I was furious at that movie, and then I went to see it again, and I hated it more. And I was just like, this movie, and it just felt like, because it's just like, oh, so we're just watching Leo DiCaprio find a way to make us all like, because it's basically like DiCaprio lives that life basically. Like DiCaprio lives a life of a corrupt fucking stock guy. Like he's a very indulged person. Like not that I know anything differently, but like Wolf of Wall Street is about a man who has access to everything and basically the corruption that comes within that. And basically Leonardo DiCaprio is a man who has everything. I don't know how corrupted he is, but essentially like him and Jordan Manafort are basically are in the same situation, so to speak. Although DiCaprio has been. So I found that really problematic get past because I felt there was a real nose thumbing of just kind of like, well, wait a minute. This is a privileged guy making a movie about a privileged guy. And I got really into my head about it. And then finally I was like, you know what? It is such a fun movie. Like the third time I saw it, I was just like, it's just like, just get out of your own ass and just see how fun it is. And it really is a really fun movie. Like Jonah Hill is so fun. Like Jonah Hill, who's a very complicated person. I've never met him or anything, but it just seems like he seems one of those guys that like, he seems moody. Like in real life, like you just like he's like he just doesn't, but he's so naturally funny. Like that, like from Superbad, like Jonah Hill is one of the funniest people on the planet. Like I think that I can't think of many people who just naturally have made me laugh as much as he has, but he fights against it. Like his first movie that he directed was like that, like really arty, like skater movie kid that I'm like
mid-90s.
Which like great for him, they did it, but it's just like, I don't know. Comedy's hard, and if you're good at it, I don't think enough people give credit to comedy. Because comedy is really hard, and really good comedy, it just doesn't get the respect it deserves. Like those like movies like Superbad, like that's a brilliant film from back then. And I mean, speaking of the subject, like I look back at a movie like Clerks 2 or Zack and Miri or those movies, like, or Jay and Silent Strike Back is one of those movies that has a laugh a minute. Like literally, that movie is so chock full of humor, and I don't know. I love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I think it's very
like
fun.
Endlessly quotable comedies, and all of those movies you named, including Zack and Miri, are endlessly quotable. There's just quotes every single minute per second. Joke. Great stuff.
Zack and Miri is so underrated. It's ridiculous. Like if any, like it's so funny because for some reason people think that that's supposed to be a bad movie, but it's not. It just got released at Halloween. Its release date was completely fucked, and it didn't. But Zack and Miri is like it's a combination of Seth Rogen's mind and Kevin Smith's mind, and you add throwing people like Craig Robinson and then Jeff Anderson. So you have like both these worlds kind of colliding, and that movie is like I don't understand why that movie isn't talked about in the same breath that people talk about as Superbad. It just seems like Zack and Miri never got its just desserts. That movie's really fucking funny.
Well, yeah, and I think Elizabeth Banks is great in it too. But I think it's the subject matter. It's like these people are doing what now, and that puts people off, and they're wrong, but it puts them off, because it's like it's about making pornography, and some people, clutch their pearls when they see that, and I think that's.
And what's so funny is that credit to Elizabeth Banks, her performance is so sweet. Like she gives such a really she walks that line like so perfectly tonally. Like it never gets gamey. It never gets like too much. Like both her and Seth did a great job at walking that really fine line of never making it dirty. And basically like Zack, like the funniest thing about Zack and Miri Make a Porno is basically it's a very sweet, charming movie about porno.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I've loved shooting the shit with you, Malcolm. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great talking to you, man.
I cannot wait for people to get their hands on Clerk because I think it's a great portrait of one of the 20th century's best directors.
Thank you.
I think Kevin's amazing. He's only got one blemish on it for me, and it's a film he hated making anyway.
Which one? Which? It's funny because I was on set of Cop Out, the whole thing, and Cop Out. We were high. He was high. I was high. Like it was like the thing about Cop Out is that like there was a real struggle between Bruce and Kevin. It was very real, and it was really like Bruce Willis was giving Kevin a hard. Bruce Willis was being a bully. Like Kevin was obviously very excited to be working with Bruce and showed it. And Kevin is a guy who wears heart on his sleeve. He's a very honest, very pure guy. And for some reason, like Kevin being that excited, earnestly, like genuinely excited to work with Bruce, just pissed Bruce Willis off. And so essentially, it was awful because like Bruce Willis just wouldn't he was mad at Kevin for how much Kevin like loved him. It was very weird, very, very, very weird shoot. But some really funny. But the sad thing is there's some really fun. Another thing about Cop Out that I will say is the script is awful. Like I read that script and I was like, there's so much plot. Like what's with all this fucking there's so much plot in that fucking movie. Like if those characters existed and Kevin had written a screenplay, it would have been such a great film. And it's just a really weird thing. And I think Kevin chose to make a studio movie as a safety kind of zone. Like it was his first studio movie, so he wanted that was in the Black Book or whatever. Like that script was very highly regarded. I remember reading that script. I was being like, why this movie is shit. Like this script is horrible. There's so much plot. There's so much. But if you when you just let Sean William Scott and Tracy Morgan is the funniest man who ever lived, period. I said that about Jonah Hill. Tracy Morgan is like Tracy Morgan's the only guy that I know that like is funnier off camera than he is on camera, and he's hilarious on camera. But Tracy Morgan would hang around like on the set, like he wouldn't go to his trailer. Like he would always he loved to make Kevin laugh. So essentially, on the set of Cop Out, like while there was that kind of Bruce Willis stuff, there was also wonderful moments of like, I think Tracy felt the tension in the set, so he decided to kind of make things better. So he would just fucking like, he would just him around Video Village, like while we were shooting, he would just kill. He would like remember entire monologues of Captain Kirk, and he would just all of a sudden out of nowhere get really serious, and he would start doing like a Captain Kirk monologue, and he'd do the whole thing, and it would just be like the fucking funniest thing you ever seen, and then he would just kind of walk off but nothing happened. Tracy Morgan, God bless him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue about that. Tracy Morgan's hysterical every time, and I've heard stories from some people about him behind the scenes. So, thank you for confirming all those. I love that.
He's wonderful.
I love that.
You know what's funny? Bruce Willis wasn't a dick to everybody. Bruce Willis was a dick to Kevin. Bruce Willis, Bruce Willis was nice to me. It was really a thing that Bruce Willis was going to punish Kevin for Kevin loving him so much. It was it was so weird.
That is weird, but I don't know. I can't speak for the man because I'm not him. I just think that's really weird behavior. Thank you so much for talking to me today. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before I let you go, Malcolm? Because this has been great.
No, man. Thank you so much for your time. If you like Kevin Smith, there's a documentary out there called Clerk, and we released a Blu-ray, and it's got a bunch of really cool extras, and the only place you get it is mercantileinstinct.com. We've opened like a brick and mortar store in the interweb. We're not it's not available through Amazon or anything. It's just like, if you want to find this movie, www.mercantileinstinct.com.
And you guys should definitely do that, because I think he does a great job of painting the picture for you of who Kevin Smith is and, the importance that he brings to cinema in the 90s. Because I think without Kevin Smith, the independent film scene would be a much different place than it was in the 90s.
Kevin and Quentin were the guys when you think about it. And it was the same year, the really cool thing about Kevin, because I think I'm the last person I think that made friends with Kevin before he, I met him at the Toronto Film Festival in '94, and we became fast friends. We have the same sense of humor. Moments like seeing Clerks in the Pulp Fiction trailer was just it was so thrilling and exciting. Those movies really kind of came up together, but they're both such really important films for completely different reasons.
I love that. And it was funny. We just had a thought about picking a year in the 90s and just talking about all the movies on our podcast. So if Kevin wants to join us, I'd love to have him.
I don't think I could get Kevin on a podcast. He's a busy guy. But you could try. He's got so much stuff going on right now. He just finished filming a new movie. This weekend, I think he's doing some events he bought a movie theater. He's always got something going on. He's a true raconteur, and he's also very much I don't know. He keeps it interesting. That's for sure.
I love that. And now I'm going to let you go because it's going to cut us off here in a minute.
All right, Malcolm, rock and roll, sir. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for your time.
No worries for Film Something. This is Malcolm Ingram, director of Clerk. Make sure you guys check out the movie mercantileinstinct.com to pick up your own copy of the doc. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
It was such a pleasure, dude. Thank you so much for your time.
Dude, it's been my pleasure.